those years of famine, human figures were gaunt and flickering, pale and withered. In Fan Village, the scene was even more miserable. Not only were they poor, they were also living each day haunted by fear at night. Every household kept their doors tightly shut and bolted. Inside, they remained completely silent, not daring to step out. Even for something as basic as going to the toilet, they had to do it in pots and jars, indoors. If even the adults lived like that, the children were all the more terrified. The older ones who could understand knew to stay silent. But the younger ones, especially infants, how could they know? Out there was something utterly terrifying waiting for them. The moment it heard a child cry, it would immediately rush into the house and take them away. The adults could still grit their teeth and endure hunger and thirst, but how could the children bear it? They wailed and cried non-stop, and no one could console them. The family members could only feel both sorrow and fear, praying desperately that the misfortune wouldn't fall upon their home. If a family was lucky, nothing would happen, but if not, then by morning, the only thing left inside, the house would be a pool of fresh blood. Their lives now hung by a thread. Death could strike at any moment, and no one could know for sure when. The story began half a year ago, on a stormy night of heavy wind and rain. Thunder echoed endlessly across the sky. Suddenly, a loud crash rang out, shaking nearly the entire Fan Village. After the sound, the whole village woke in panic. Children screamed in fear. Dogs barked frantically across the area. At the home of Mr. Tun and Mrs. Na. After that crash, their 1-year-old son cried out in terror. No matter how she tried, Mrs. Na couldn't calm him down. Her face full of worry, she turned to her husband and said, "What was that sound just now, honey?" It was terrifying. Mr. Tun, unable to hide the fear in his eyes, replied, "I don't know either. Maybe it was just thunder." But Mrs. Na quickly responded, "That wasn't thunder. I heard it clearly. It sounded like something roaring. It chilled me to the bone." In truth, Tun also knew that wasn't thunder. But he didn't want his wife to be scared, so he said that just to reassure her. After hearing her say that, he answered vaguely, "It's probably nothing. Don't worry. Try to calm the baby down so we can sleep." Mrs. Na tried again and again, until she was drenched in sweat, but the baby still wouldn't stop crying. Lying next to her, Tun also felt anxious and uneasy. The baby's cries grew louder and louder. Outside, the dog chained near the door whimpered and groaned. The air inside became tense and suffocating, with flashes of lightning casting eerie shadows through the room. Suddenly, at the window where the rickety, rundown house was already shaking, loud pounding noises erupted, startling the couple. Terrified, Mrs. Na grabbed the baby and rolled to the far side of the room, away from the window. Mr. Tun jumped out of bed and ran to the corner of the house, glancing toward the noise with a horrified expression. The windows shook more and more violently. Accompanying the pounding were the sounds of someone or something furiously trying to pry it open. Finally, the warped termite-eaten wooden frame gave way. One of the panels was yanked open, revealing a face pressed tightly against the gap. A blinding flash of lightning lit up the scene. In that moment, they saw it clearly, a grotesque, blood-red face like fresh pig's blood pudding, utterly horrifying, holding their crying child. Mrs. Na screamed. Mr. Tun grabbed his wife and child, pulling them far away from the window. At that point, they still didn't know exactly what was standing out there, but it clearly wasn't anything good. "Who's there? Who's outside?" Mrs. Na's voice trembled. Tun rushed to the ancestral altar and lit the oil lamp. In the dim, flickering light, the face still loomed there, unmoving. Its eyes stared intently, like a predator locked onto its prey. I said, "Who's there? If you don't speak up, don't blame me for what happens." After that threatening shout, the face remained completely still, showing no reaction. Tun swallowed hard, took a risk, grabbed a bowl and hurled it at the window. Clang! The bowl hit the iron bars with a sharp crash, shattering to pieces. At that moment, the figure outside curled its lips into a grin, revealing a pair of long, razor-sharp fangs. Seeing that, Mrs. Nez's entire body went weak, her legs buckled, and her face turned ghostly pale. Tun also stepped back in horror. Only then did they realize, whatever stood outside, it was not human. Rain pounded down, the wind shrieked, thunder rolled across the sky. Inside, the three of them huddled together, trembling uncontrollably. Outside, the creature finally moved. It raised a black hairy arm and grabbed the iron bars of the window. With one wrenching pull, they snapped with a crack. Realizing there was no time left, Tun yanked the door bolt and shouted, "Run, run, now!" But he hadn't expected the thing to be so fast. In a blur, it slipped right into the house. In the flickering lamplight, Mrs. Ney caught a glimpse of its terrifying form. Its entire body was covered in black hair. Its fingernails were long and sharp like razors, and its eyes, just one glance into them was enough to freeze her soul in terror. In his panic, Tun struggled to pull the bolt open. Behind them, the creature leaped forward like a monkey and lunged at the baby in Mrs. Nez's arms. Though she was frightened beyond reason, a mother's instinct erupted within her. With all her might, she clung to her child. The two sides wrestled fiercely. The creature's claws dug into the child's leg, drawing blood. The baby's cries grew louder, more piercing. Beside them, Tun punched and kicked with all his strength, but it had no effect whatsoever. The creature didn't even react to him. Its only goal was to take the child. After a moment of intense struggle, 3 long screams echoed from within the house, then fell silent. The barking dog that had been making noise the whole time also went quiet. Outside, only the sound of the rain, the thunder, and the wailing wind remained. By morning, the skies over Fan Village remained dim and overcast. The rain still fell in a steady drizzle without pause. Suddenly, from the center of the village, a woman's voice cried out, "Dead. Oh God, someone's dead. The village hall has collapsed." It was Aunt T, rushing through the village, shouting to alert the nearby households. "What is it, Aunt T? What's going on? Hurry. Go tell Elder PHC, quick. The Fan Village Hall has collapsed." "What? The village hall? That can't be. They just renovated it last year. How would I know? I woke up this morning and saw it like that. I ran straight here to tell everyone." "No time to explain. Go to Elder PHC's house, now." Clutching her chest, panting heavily, Aunt T could barely speak. Mr. Han didn't dare waste another second. He dashed into his house, grabbed his old bicycle, and pedaled straight to Elder PHC's home. Not long after, the whole neighborhood had gathered at the scene. Everyone stood in disbelief. The once mighty village hall had collapsed, half its roof caved in. No one dared to get too close, partly out of fear of falling debris, but mostly out of unease. Something felt wrong, very wrong. Half an hour later, Elder PHC arrived. He stared, stunned at the scene before him. A villager quickly asked, "What's going on, Elder PHC? Do you think lightning struck the hall last night?" Folk, visibly shaken, responded, "I don't know, but it's unlikely. What kind of lightning could bring down half a roof? Besides, look, see how the whole structure is leaning to one side." Even without him saying it, people had noticed. The building was clearly tilted to the left. The angle wasn't steep, but it was obvious. Could it be from the storm last night? Maybe the rain loosened the ground and caused it to shift. Another man asked. This time, Elder PHC nodded. "That's very possible, but we'll need a proper inspection to know for sure. What should we do now? Should we report this to the commune?" Elder PHC waved his hand. "No need. This is our village's matter. Inform the village elders and those in charge." We'll gather and discuss how to handle it ourselves." He then assigned some young men to spread the word. He went to the storage yard and used the loudspeaker to notify the rest of the village. More and more people poured toward the hall, curious and anxious. The scene was almost festive, people bustling about, but the expressions on their faces were filled with fear and unease, not joy. Among them was Mr. Han, neighbor to Mr. Tun. Hearing the news, he rushed over to take a look. As he passed Tun's house, he intended to call him to come along, but stopped in surprise. The front gate was still tightly locked. He peered inside. Everything was eerily silent. At this hour, the couple should have been up already, but today, for some reason, the house remained sealed and quiet. After a moment of observation, Mr. Hun called out, "Tun, Na, come out to the village hall. Something big has happened." He called 3 times, but there was no reply from inside. A chilling thought crossed his mind. Oh no, could something have happened to them? With rising dread, he climbed over the fence and jumped into the yard. As he approached the veranda, he froze in horror. Their dog was lying motionless dead. Even more terrifying, blood had pooled around it, blackened and thick. Swarming with flies, it took him several seconds to collect himself. Then he shouted, "Tun, are you in there?" Truthfully, he already knew calling was useless. If Tun or Na were alive, they'd have responded when he was still at the gate. Still, he stepped slowly to the door and knocked gently, calling again. Silence. Then he cautiously peered inside. The flickering oil lamp on the altar still burned. His eyes dropped to the floor, and what he saw made him stagger back in terror. There, lying on the ground, was a pool of crimson. Even in the dim light, he could see 2 bodies sprawled on the floor. He didn't need to look closely. He already knew who they were. Too afraid to break down the door, he bolted toward the gate and screamed, "Help! Someone's dead. Tun and Na are dead." By then, most of the nearby families had gone to the village hall. Only the elderly and children remained at home. The old folks were mostly hard of hearing, so Mr. Hines' shouting didn't reach them. As for the children, they only trembled in fear, not understanding a thing. Seeing no one respond, Mr. Han ran full speed to the hall. Just as the villagers were still trying to make sense of the collapse, they saw him arrive, pale as a ghost. "What's wrong, Mr. Han? Your house on fire or something?" "No, it's Tun's house. They're dead." Still catching his breath, he gasped out the words. Everyone froze in shock. "What? What did you say? Say that again? Tun and Na are dead? I just came from their house. They're dead inside." "What? When? Where?" "Inside their home? I was going to call them out and found their bodies lying there. Hurry, come see." When Elder PHC and the villagers arrived, they saw the dead dog, its teeth bared, eyes bulging. Everyone shivered. Elder PHC quickly ordered 2 young men to break the door. As soon as it gave way, a horrific scene greeted them. Furniture overturned, blood splattered everywhere, on the bed, on the floor. Tun and Ne's bodies lay twisted in grotesque positions. Their joints looked broken, their limbs curled unnaturally like worms. Both died with their eyes wide open, their faces still frozen in expressions of pain and terror. The sight left everyone both heartbroken and terrified. After a moment of silence, Elder PHC turned to Mr. Han and asked, "Didn't this family have a small child, about 1 year old?" Mr. Han nodded. "Yes, the boy's name is Ski. He just turned 1 not long ago." "When you came this morning, did you see the child?" "No, I didn't see him anywhere. As soon as I saw the 2 bodies, I ran straight to the hall." "Could it be that the boy was staying with his grandparents or relatives?" "I don't think so. That boy always cried at night. He clung to his mother and never went with anyone else. He's never spent the night away." Elder folk nodded, deep in thought, then said, "Understood. For now, Let's go notify the grandparents on both sides. See if they know anything. As for the rest, I'll report this to the commune and have them send investigators." Then he turned to the villagers. "Everyone, please disperse and leave the scene untouched. No one is allowed to interfere with anything inside until the police arrive to examine the evidence." Later, only mournful cries remained in the broken house. Officers from the commune arrived, measuring and documenting the scene. At first, they suspected a robbery or a homicide, but after examining the bodies, confusion set in. If a human did this, how could they snap every bone in the victims' bodies like that? Then they looked up at the window. The metal bars had been bent and torn. Again, not something easily done by human hands. That wasn't all. The clearest clue was what they found beneath the body's strange black slime. As they moved closer, a foul stench hit them. The officers gagged, covering their noses. The stench was enough to make them dizzy. And inside the black goo were tiny maggots, squirming and wriggling outside. The neighbors whispered in horror. After reviewing everything, Officer Than, the head of commune police, stepped out and said to Mrs. Myanton's mother, "We've documented all the evidence, but we can't draw any conclusions yet. We'll report this to higher authorities and have specialists sent here. Please rest assured, we'll find whoever did this and bring justice to your family." Mrs. Myan collapsed, weeping and wailing, her hair disheveled. She looked utterly devastated. Between choking sobs, she cried, "I beg you, please find the one who did this, so their souls can rest in peace." At the same time, two unexpected incidents occurred in Fan Village, stirring fear and widespread gossip throughout the community. Out at the communal house, the village elders had all gathered, yet no one dared approach the collapsed structure directly. Instead, they sat together on mats, spread across the center of the courtyard, quietly discussing the matter among themselves. The meeting was presided over by Mr. Page C, who now stood to speak. "As you all know, last night after the heavy storm, half of the Fan Village communal house collapsed. As for the cause, we still haven't been able to determine it precisely, but I suspect, most likely, the foundation of the temple sank, causing the entire structure to tilt and eventually give way." Mr. Huck, a respected elder with some authority in the village, added, "There's no point discussing what caused the collapse anymore. What's important now is to decide how to deal with it. The village cannot go a single day without its communal house." "Exactly. Just by looking, we can tell this wasn't man-made. Whatever it was, it doesn't matter now. Just hire some excavators, tear the whole thing down, and call on the villagers to contribute for the restoration. What do you all say?" A dozen elders exchanged glances, whispering among themselves for a while, then eventually nodded in agreement, just as Mr. PHC was about to formally conclude the decision. An old man slowly stepped through the village gate. It was Old Bun, leaning on a cane, his frail hands trembling as he walked. In his other hand, he carried a small black wooden box, the contents of which were unknown, but whatever it held, he carried it with extreme care. His appearance startled the others. In terms of age, Old Bun was the oldest person in the village, nearly 100 years old. Though he was the longest living and most senior member of the village, he was rarely invited to important gatherings. Perhaps it was because of his age that people viewed him as stubborn and outdated. His opinions often clashed with others and were considered out of touch with the times. Most notably, he had long opposed the buffalo sacrifice festival held after TGT Lunar New Year, where the buffalo was ritually speared and slaughtered. That practice had been part of the village's customs for over 100 years, deeply ingrained in the local culture. Villagers believed it was a sacred offering to the gods, meant to bring good fortune for the new year. Because of his repeated objections, Old Bun had gradually been ostracized and excluded from village affairs. So when he appeared now, many faces turned sour with disapproval, although Mr. PHC wasn't fond of him either. He walked over politely, smiled faintly, and said, "Ah, Mr. Bun, please come join us for some tea. May I ask what brings you here today?" Old Bun swept his eyes over the group, then glanced toward the collapsed roof before speaking. "I know you're all gathered here to discuss village matters. You've always called this old man stubborn and old-fashioned, so be it. I won't argue. But today, I came to warn you about something of grave importance. Fan Village is on the brink of disaster." The elders sitting on the mats smirked and chuckled dismissively, clearly unimpressed. Mr. PHC, though skeptical, remained courteous. "What did you say, sir? Fan Village is about to face a disaster. That's right. I'm not trying to scare you. I have proof here. Look." With that, Old Bun opened the black wooden box he had brought. From inside, he pulled out a yellow cloth, visibly old and worn. On the cloth was a poem written in ancient Chien characters. He squinted his eyes and read aloud, slowly, so everyone could hear. "At the year's start, the rains pour strong. Flooding spreads across the fields wide and long. The village hall tilts its solemn face. Fan Village meets its cursed fate." He repeated the verse 3 times, then handed the yellow cloth to Mr. Patesy. However, Fock couldn't read Ch-N-E-M, so he passed it to other elders. Luckily, a few of them could still understand the old script. Upon translating, they confirmed the words matched exactly what Old Bun had recited. Mr. PHC turned back and asked, "Where did you get this cloth, sir? And what exactly does it mean? Could you please explain further?" Old Bun nodded solemnly, before replying, "This cloth was left to me by my father before he passed. If any of you took the time to learn your history, you'd know he was once a highly respected feng shui master in this region. In my youth, he taught me much about feng shui, the 8 trigrams, astrology, and physiognomy, but my fate wasn't suited to the craft. Eventually, the knowledge faded and was lost. That failure has haunted me all my life." At that, his eyes welled up with tears clearly. He was remembering his late father. After a moment, he continued, "Just before his death, my father cast a final reading to foresee the fate of Fan Village for the next 100 years. The first hexagram he received was Dunchina, thunderous shock that shakes the heavens and topples everything in its path, a sign of immense calamity. Then he cast again, and the next hexagram was Fong 3 Hone, symbolizing separation, dispersal, and loss. When combining both readings, he interpreted a prophecy of ruin. That's when he wrote this poem and entrusted it to me, for the sake of the future generations." At this point, some elders began to shift uneasily, their expressions showing traces of concern, but most remained unconvinced. Mr. Patesy, caught between belief and doubt, said, "What you've said is very deep and complex, sir, but also quite vague and difficult to verify. As the village head, I acknowledge your contribution and will keep your warning in mind. Is there anything else you wish to share?" Realizing they still didn't believe him, Old Ben pressed on. "This is no trivial matter. You must believe me. Before passing, my father warned me, if you ever see these signs collapse after heavy rain, flooding across the fields, then you must seek out a true spiritual master to help the village. If not, the consequences will be beyond imagining." Mr. PHC's expression turned uncomfortable. He gently took the old man's hand, pulled him aside, and whispered, "Yes, sir, we understand. We've taken your words to heart. For now, why don't you head home and let us continue discussing?" Old Bun understood perfectly well that he was being politely dismissed. Knowing further protest was useless, he turned back toward the group and called out one final time, "Please, remember what I've said. For the sake of Fan Village, trust me just this once. Trust me. Yes, yes, we heard you. Don't worry, we'll keep it in mind. You may go now, sir." Before he could even finish, Mr. PHC cut him off. Old Bun let out a weary sigh. then turned and hobbled away, slowly disappearing beyond the courtyard. After the old man's shadow had disappeared, Mr. HCH cleared his throat and muttered, "That old man is such a nuisance. Always going on and on with nonsense, scaring everyone half to death." Another man joined in, sneering, "Exactly. I kept quiet earlier out of respect, but what great disaster or calamity was he even talking about? He's old. He should just stay home instead of wandering around spouting rubbish. If it weren't for his age, I'd have given him a good scolding right there." A third voice, more moderate, offered, "Well, I don't think you should speak that way. After all, he meant well. He was only worried something might happen to our village." To be fair, what he said didn't sound completely unreasonable. Maybe we should give it more serious thought. And just like that, voices flew back and forth, some dismissive, some sympathetic, but most leaned toward mocking and discrediting old Ben. Only a couple supported him, and even they fell silent under the pressure of the majority. As the mediator and village head, Mr. PHC had no choice but to follow the crowd. At last, he stood and declared, "Enough. Let's not dwell on this any longer. I've made my decision. We'll go with the majority. For now, we'll focus on repairing the Fan Village communal house. As for old Ben's warnings, we'll set them aside." That very afternoon, Mr. PHC had the village loudspeaker announce the plan, calling for donations to fund the temple's restoration. The next day, 2 excavators were brought in from the county town to begin demolition. Strangely enough, the sky had been perfectly clear earlier, but not long after the machines arrived, dark clouds began to gather. Soon, heavy winds picked up, thunder rumbled ominously, and then the downpour came, sudden and torrential. At first, many villagers came to watch, out of curiosity, but within minutes, they scattered, running for cover as the rain grew worse. Only Mr. PHC and a few elderly men remained to oversee the work, since no one had dared approach the crumbling temple since yesterday for fear of collapse. Mr. PHC now directed the excavators to tear down the weakened sections and create a safe path for workers to enter and remove all items from inside before repairs could begin. Overhead, the rain grew heavier and heavier. Though it was midday, the scene looked as dim and murky as twilight. Just as one of the excavators knocked over a large section of wall, a thunderous crack split the air. A bolt of lightning struck down from the sky with terrifying force. It hit the remaining rooftop directly, collapsing another massive chunk of it. The 2 young excavator drivers panicked. They flung open the cabin doors and jumped out, trembling. Had the lightning struck just a few meters differently, they'd be nothing but charred corpses by now. Without a word, the 2 men sprinted toward the others. Their faces were pale as ghosts. Mr. PHC stood frozen, his mouth agape in shock. It took a while before he could compose himself enough to speak. "Everyone, stay calm. No one was hurt. But for safety's sake, let's pause everything for now. We'll take shelter at Mr. Lewis's house until the storm passes. We'll continue later from Mr. Lewis's house." They could still see the rooftop of the communal house now, half demolished and blackened where the lightning had struck. The 2 excavator drivers were still visibly shaken, their hands trembling as they held teacups. Suddenly, one of them flinched, dropping his cup and smashing it to pieces on the floor. Another bolt of lightning had struck again, hitting the exact same spot on the temple roof. Everyone gasped in terror. One of the young men turned to Mr. PHC, his voice trembling. "Sir, I don't think I can do this anymore. I'm too scared. I've never seen anything like this before. Please, let me quit. I don't even want the money." Before Mr. PHC could respond, the second driver chimed in. "Me too, sir. I can't go back out there. Not for any amount. Please, understand." Mr. PHC tried to reason with them. "Come now, you two, surely it's just coincidence. Let's wait until the rain clears. I'll pay you both 1.5 times the original fee. Just help us finish the job." But the two men shook their heads adamantly. No, sir. Money's important, but not more than our lives. We've always been cautious when it comes to temples and shrines. Today we took the risk because the pay was good, but after what we just saw, even if you tripled the money, we wouldn't do it. We're sorry. Hearing that, Mr. PHC knew further persuasion was pointless. He sighed and said, "All right then, if that's your decision, I won't force you. Once the rain stops, go ahead and drive the excavators back to town. And if possible, please let us know if you know anyone else who might be willing to take over." One of them replied, "Honestly, sir, I know a lot of excavator operators, but don't get your hopes up. If we've backed out, no one else will dare step in. And I'm not just boasting, ask anyone around here about do and can. They'll tell you we're the craziest ones in the county. If we're scared off, you know it's serious." As Mr. PHC listened to their words, he didn't know whether to believe them or not. But deep down, he had a sinking feeling that restoring the temple was going to be much harder than expected. Suddenly, he recalled Old Man's words from the day before. His unease grew stronger by the minute. The following day, Mr. PHC and several others went back to the county town in search of new workers. But just as the two young men had warned, not a single excavator crew agreed to take the job, even when offered significantly more money. Out of options, the villagers held another emergency meeting. They ultimately decided to proceed with the demolition manually. It would be slower and far more dangerous, but they had no choice. Still, Mr. PHC believed that if they worked carefully and used proper safety gear, it might just be possible. So, that very day, dozens of strong young men and able-bodied workers were summoned. Using thick wooden beams, they stood at a distance and rammed them against the weakened walls. Bit by bit, until after several hours, they managed to open a safe passage leading into the temple. After thorough inspection, Mr. PHC finally gave the order for the young men to enter and begin removing items from inside. And once again, strangely, the moment they stepped inside, the sky darkened, thunder rumbled, lightning flickered, and then came the downpour. Violent and unrelenting. Having witnessed all these strange events since the day before, Mr. PHC was now deeply unsettled, but he quickly pushed aside his fear and shouted, "Hurry, move faster, get everything out of there, now."